I missed something huge in my last Battle Hall video. It turns out that I barely scratched the surface of unlockable dialogue, so I went on a tedious, painful journey to figure it out and finally document it. In this video, I'll be going over the Parasocial superfans of the Battle Hall, how to unlock their dialogue, and I'll show all of it for the first time. If you didn't watch my previous Battle Hall video, I'll quickly summarize it. The Battle Hall is a facility within the Battle Frontier, a post-game challenge area featured in Pokemon Platinum, Heart Gold, and SoulSilver. The Battle Hall is a solo Pokemon challenge, meaning you go in with just one Pokemon and battle other singular Pokemon. My previous video goes over what I'll call the celebrity fans, a niche and previously barely documented feature of the Battle Hall. By accumulating a high total win streak, meaning the combined total of each Pokemon's highest win streak, you can unlock special fans that appear in the lobby to cheer you on. These fans include characters like your player character's mom, Professor Oak, Whitney, and so on. But I glossed over something in that video that ended up being way deeper than I realized. In the video, I briefly mentioned Serena and Winston, generic NPCs that also hang out in the Battle Hall and are supposed to cheer you on. If you are playing as Ethan or Lucas, Serena will be your fan, and if you are playing as Lyra or Dawn, then Winston will be your fan. At the time, I didn't try to figure out how they worked because 1, I thought they'd be less interesting than famous characters like Jasmine, and 2, I only ever saw their dialogue change one time, so I didn't think there was much to it. It wasn't until I decided to take a peek into the game's text files that I learned how much these characters were hiding. It turns out these characters have a lot of dialogue. These random fan NPCs have as much out-of-battle dialogue as important characters like Mars and Jupiter, and have significantly more dialogue than the Frontier Brains themselves. Serena and Winston each have 10 unique interactions, and the way you unlock them is completely different from the way you unlock these celebrity fans. I ended up testing a bunch of different things to unlock their dialogue, and coincidentally unlocked one of the dialogue changes while I was working on my previous Battle Hall video. Unfortunately, none of the early unlockable dialogue really hints at how they work. Instead, they just generically nudge you to keep challenging the Battle Hall. I was pretty stumped on how to proceed, and I couldn't figure out any way to see more of the dialogue. I figured the best place to look would be the game's text files to read all of the unlockable dialogue. A quick note here is that the fan dialogue is identical between Platinum, Heart Gold, and SoulSilver. A few lines in particular stuck out to me, one of which involves the fan asking which Pokemon are you going to use this time, and another one mentioning the love you show so many Pokemon. So I tried something simple, just getting win streaks with lots of different Pokemon. After some thorough testing, I figured out exactly how this mechanic works. Instead of counting your total win streak like the celebrity fans do, the game counts the amount of Pokemon that have any win record whatsoever in the Battle Hall. This includes the singles, doubles, and multi-mode. It doesn't matter if you get 1 win or 1,000 wins with a Pokemon, it just counts as one record towards this fan dialogue. New fan dialogues unlock at various win counts, and the fan's location can change too. To give an example, let's say I achieved a 5 win streak with Bulbasaur in the singles mode, and a 10 win streak with it in the doubles mode. This would count as one record towards unlocking the fan dialogue. If I get a 12 win streak with Pikachu right after, I now have 2 records. While I now knew how to unlock the fan dialogue, I didn't know what record counts unlocked new dialogue. All I knew at this point was that there were 10 unique interactions, and in my early testing, I confirmed that there were different dialogues at 0, 1, and 11 records. So, I prepared for the painful journey of getting a win record with every Pokemon until I unlocked all the fan dialogue. The good news here is that getting 1 win with every Pokemon should be fairly easy. For those unfamiliar with the Battle Hall, you can challenge a Pokemon of any type. These Pokemon can be anywhere from rank 1 to 10, and they always start at rank 1 when you first challenge the hall with a new Pokemon. The level formula can be found on Bulbapedia, but basically how high level your opponent is depends on your Pokemon's level and the rank you are challenging. Most importantly, the rank 1 Pokemon are significantly lower level than you. As an example, if you challenge the hall with a level 85 Pokemon, the opponent will be level 58. The low rank opponents also have pretty much random AI, so even if they can knock you out, there's no guarantee that they will. This means that even weak Pokemon should be able to get a single win without too much trouble. Not all Pokemon are legal to challenge the Battle Hall. Like all of the other facilities in the Battle Frontier, certain legendary, mythical, and event Pokemon are not allowed to compete. This means that there are only 475 legal Pokemon that I could get a record with. Additionally, all Pokemon have to be at least level 30 in order to challenge the hall. So with all that in mind, I set up a SoulSilver save file that had a full living dex of high level Pokemon and got to work. In terms of moves, I utilized strong HMs like Surf and Strength as much as possible. Otherwise, I used whatever decent move the Pokemon already learned. Honestly, even Tackle was sufficient for most Pokemon, since I could choose to battle a Bug-type Pokemon and they typically have low stats. The great thing about bug type is that you can't even get Shedinja at rank 1. For some reason you can get Shedinja at Ghost rank 1 though, so don't pick that if you're worried about it. My general strategy was to enter the hall, pick either bug type or a type that I had a super effective move against, win, and then immediately retire and repeat. I was initially picking normal type a lot, but some of the normal flying types you can run into are tough if you're weak to flying. Plus you can get Ditto as an opponent. Since Ditto transforms into your Pokemon, it'll probably have at least one good move and will take multiple hits to defeat, unless you have a good super effective move against yourself. I definitely recommend avoiding normal type if you're doing this just to save time. Each party of 6 Pokemon took me a bit over 10 minutes to get a win with all of them. After this, I ran back to the PC, swapped in the next set of 6, and then repeated. I was also constantly checking to see if the fan had unlocked additional dialogue after getting a win. All in all, this took me about 15 to 20 hours and was honestly one of the most mind-numbing grinds that I have ever experienced. The biggest issue was just the sheer amount of time I had to wait. Saving in Gen 4 is slow, and it's even slower on your first save after using the PC, which I was using a lot. You're also saving both when you enter and when you retire. Combine those 2 saves per Pokemon with all the walking and loading, and you're doing way more waiting than battling. On top of that, the battles are incredibly boring since your opponents are so underleveled. You're either one-shotting them with ease, or you're using a super weak Pokemon and pressing tackle for 5 turns. The grind itself was mostly smooth, with only a few exceptions. The biggest issue I ran into was actually with Happiny, Chansey's baby form introduced in Gen 4. This Pokemon has atrocious attack, special attack, and defense. Its stats mirror Chansey's pretty well, mostly being aimed towards special defense, which is completely useless in a challenge like this. I figured my best bet was to teach it Fire Blast or Flamethrower and then spam Bug type until I won. Since a single physical attack would shred my poor Happiny, I lost about 4 times before finally getting lucky. I managed to run into a Surskit that could only hit me with a special attacking move, Bubble Beam, so I eventually won the fight. Wynot and Wobbuffet were also unique Pokemon for this challenge. They're incapable of learning a normal attacking move, so instead you rely entirely upon Counter and Mirror Coat to knock out your opponents. Wobbuffet's pretty bulky, but Wynot is not. Fortunately, it only took me 2 tries to snag a win with Wynot. Magikarp was one Pokemon I was really worried about. While Tackle is fine for most Pokemon, Magikarp has a measly 10 attack, so that wasn't cutting it. However, Magikarp learns Bounce in Gen 4 from move tutors, letting me easily shred a bug type with no problem. I was also worried about the really weak unevolved bugs like Caterpie and Kakuna. Fortunately, all the bad bug Pokemon were given access to Bug Bite in Gen 4. Bug Bite is a 60 base power physical bug type move that is more than strong enough to give these weak Pokemon a chance. At the very end of my grind, I ran into one last extremely annoying issue. I finished getting a win with the last Pokemon I needed, and I saw that I only had 473 records, 2 short of the 475 I was aiming for. I knew I was off because I was strictly getting 1 win per Pokemon, so the NPC in the lobby that counted my total wins was effectively my tracker. I somehow missed 2 Pokemon and had no idea which Pokemon I missed. The only way to find out was to look through the records PC, but the records PC doesn't tell you which Pokemon you haven't won with, at least not directly. This PC only shows you a Pokemon's name if you achieved a win with them. Otherwise, their name will be completely missing. So the only way to find out which Pokemon I missed was to pull up an alphabetical list of the first 493 Pokemon and compare them to the PC one letter at a time. This took me about 20 minutes, it was awful. Ultimately, I found out I had missed Piplup and Primplup, and I was finally able to reach the maximum of 475 unique Pokemon records in the Battle Hall. With this grueling task complete, I can finally confirm for you all how many unique records are required to unlock every single fan interaction within the Battle Hall. Yes, if you want all the unique dialogues, you must achieve a record with every single legal Pokemon, all 475 of them. I'll play through the dialogue at the end of the video, but it's interesting. As you progress through these tiers, the dialogue gets more and more parasocial as Serena or Winston become obsessed with your performances. Let's take Serena for example. When you have 0 records, she says, "There has been no gorgeous challenger who can dazzle me." When you hit 11 records, she says, "Watching you on stage made me feel all tingly." Then she asks if she can cheer for you. At 51 records, your fan confesses that thinking about the next Pokemon you use makes it hard for them to sleep at night. Finally culminating at 475 records where she says, "I love you for being so amazing and dedicated." On top of that, the fan actually moves closer and closer to you as you progress. At 11 records, they move a few spaces closer to the entry point and become visible on screen when you exit the hall. At 101 wins, they move super close and are just a couple tiles away from you, showing their increased adoration of you. Clearly, these fans are meant to mimic celebrity and idol culture, bordering on being a little too much at times. These fans tie in pretty well with the themes of the hall and make you feel like a superstar for succeeding in it. Unfortunately, the vast majority of players never unlocked all the fans' dialogue, mostly because this is by far the most boring and tedious facility in the Battle Frontier. If you didn't know about these fan interactions, which is entirely reasonable given that it has not been well documented for over 15 years, you really have no reason to grind the hall once you obtain the gold print from beating Hall Matron Argenta. There are much better facilities to grind for battle points, and all of them are more interesting and more challenging. So why did they add all this hidden content to the battle hall? I covered it in my last video as well, but unlocking all of the Winston and Serena dialogue plus these celebrity fans would take hundreds of hours. If you talk to NPCs in the hall, some of them mention comparing records with your friends and trying to beat them. Maybe they thought this would be a more popular facility than it actually is. I think the most likely reason it exists is that they were planning some similar content for the other facilities that ended up getting scrapped, but we might never know for sure. If you have any ideas for why this exists, feel free to let me know in the comments. I cannot stress enough that this feature was so unpopular that it took 15 years for somebody to go and finally document it. Regardless, I suffered through this grind, so you don't have to, so you're welcome. If you would like to reward me for turning my brain to mush for 20 hours, please be sure to like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it, and I've got other weird Gen 4 videos on the way. Fortunately, I don't think there's too much more to dive into with this. I think we covered every oddity with the battle hall, and I'm glad I was finally able to document all of it in great detail. To end the video, I'm going to run through all the dialogue for both Winston and Serena so you too can feel their love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.